take whatever this is. This is the second video in the Getting Into Real Estate series. The first video I did was called Licensing. Once you have received your license, or preferably before you actually receive your license, what do you want to do with your license? What can you do with your license? You can do residential sales, you could do commercial sales, land and ranch sales, you could do leasing for all three of those, or you could do property management. We're going to start with residential sales first. That's just working with people who want to buy a house. I'm editing this and realized that I just said people who want to buy a house, but you can work with sellers too. I don't know why I left that out. You can work with anybody wanting to buy or sell a house. And in my defense, I never said I was smart. I never claimed that I was smart, so just throwing that out there. And that is going to be learning the residential sales contract. That's going to be learning the loan supplements, the other supplements that come along with the transaction, your time frames, and that's all training you're going to be leaning on your broker for, because that's the best place to get it, is your broker, because they have a very specific way they probably want you doing stuff. So that's residential sales. What would I recommend somebody have going into that? You don't need like a legal background or anything, or even a business or sales background, because I think real estate is more just listening than it is sales. Most people know what they want. You might have to coach them a little bit on what's realistically attainable and what's not. But I would say the best thing to have is a flexible mindset when you're going into the world of residential sales. And the reason I say that is because everybody needs a home. There are people from every end of the political and religious spectrum that are coming into the real estate market to buy a house, and you don't want to alienate somebody because of your personal beliefs that should not saturate into your business world. So I would say just be ready to work with everybody, whether you agree with them on personal matters or not. It doesn't have to be made into a discussion about that. Commercial real estate is a different beast, an entirely different beast. You are going to be working with business owners or commercial real estate investors. They could be individuals that you know from that you grew up with, and they just happen to do well for themselves, and they have a bunch of different properties they're wanting to lease out or buy more of or sell. Or they could be an institutional investor. Maybe you have a connection with somebody at like Old Navy or Walmart or something, and you're helping with their acquisitions and stuff like that. But at any rate, the learning curve for commercial is far steeper than with residential. I have started going through the CCIM program, which is the Certified Commercial Investment Member, but I've only done 2 of the classes, and I've only worked with a couple different commercial clients, so I'm very limited in my experience there. But from what I have seen so far, the very limited exposure I have had to commercial is shocking, the amount of knowledge that's going to be required to help somebody do an investment analysis or a financial analysis on whether they should buy and hold or buy and flip, or how long they should hold it, what kind of financing should they use, so on and so forth. You are also going to have a deep knowledge of leases, and these leases are not one state contract type lease that you can go learn like the sales contract. We've unified the sales contract for residential in Oklahoma with a state contract. That's not the case with leases. A lot of these bigger investors, and not just investors, but like the institutional investors I talked about who have a corporate element to them, they have their own leases that you have to learn theirs. And we're talking potentially hundreds of different leases that you might have to be able to read over the course of a commercial real estate career. So I would say your background for this needs to be more of a mathematical or analytical business type acumen than personality. You need to be able to get comfortable reading a lot, and your comprehension skills should be pretty high, and the ability to communicate what you read should be pretty high as well, because anything written by a lawyer is going to require some translation to get it to the normal person's eardrums. So the learning curve, crazy high on commercial. My recommendation is really want to do that, it's not one of those things that you should just try, because it will be a not fun experience. Leasing, anytime you're doing leases for residential, you're probably in one of the vertical markets. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you guys grow up instead of out. You guys have skyscrapers. You have huge downtown districts and midtown districts, and proprietary leases are far more common where you are. So it's going to be similar to sales in the regard that you're going to be helping people for the purpose of, obtaining primary residence leases. But different in the fact that you're not transferring title the same way as you are in sales. So you're not reading a sales contract. You're still dealing with a lease. You still have the landlord and tenant dynamic. My suggestion on this is more, I would say, be more analytically minded for this one. Be ready for a lot of reading again on that. And as far as opportunities for residential, whether it be single family or multifamily, I'd say there are far less leasing opportunities in residential than there are sales. So when I say leasing, if you really want to think about a career going into leasing, I would probably want to lean more toward commercial, because if you're getting a percentage of the gross lease amount, you're going to want to maximize that amount. And that's going to be done with like industrial leases or retail or office space leases that are signed for multi-year, high dollar per month amounts. So again, though, I'm going to refer back to my suggestion on the commercial. Make sure that's what you want to do. Make sure it's not just a wild hair that you got and you're wanting to just go try it out. Property management. That is another one where you have to ask residential or commercial. The most common form of residential property management that we have here in Oklahoma is smaller multifamily. It could be a quadplex or maybe an eight unit apartment complex, or duplexes, triplexes, single family. You have a real estate investor who will probably come to you with their portfolio and say, hey, I want you to manage all of these properties, and then you're going to get paid a percentage of each month's rent. And if you're doing the lease placements too, then you're going to be getting paid a placement fee. You'll keep part of that first month's deposit. You need to have a really kind of like a grind it out type mindset to do this, because it is a grind to do property management. When we think about all of the stuff, you probably need to be able to wear a lot of hats too, because you're probably going to be getting the phone calls on the clogged toilets and everything. You need to be a maintenance person, an accountant, a salesperson, marketing analyst. You need to be all kinds of things to be an effective property manager, depending on who you're working for. But regardless of whether you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it with somebody else, you need to be pretty patient, because you're going to get a lot of crazy calls at all different times of the day and night. For commercial, this is going to be something that I would recommend doing after you've done commercial leases and sales. This is something you want to have a lot of background before you go to a property owner and you say, hey, let me take care of you. Let me take care of this space for you. Because that's what you're doing, is you're going to somebody, let's say it's a strip mall, and you approach the property owner and you say, hey, let me put my sign out front and say, call me for leasing questions. And then you're going to be the one negotiating the leases with all the people. And then not only that, you're going to be making sure that you preserve or increase the value of that property to the best of your abilities. And within reason. You can't control the market, obviously, but you're going to want to make sure that you're doing all of the maintenance. You're going to want to make sure that you handle, who's responsible for what. And it's a highly specialized field. So just keep that in mind. I'd say make that something you work up to. Last but not least, land and ranch. This one is crazy how detailed it can get. Honestly, it's insane. If you had a rancher come up to you and they're like, hey, I want to buy a 300,000 acre ranch, the first thing that's going to pop in front of your eyes, and if you're anything like me, is going to be dollar signs, right? You're going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich.
I just bought this truck straight cash, and I got enough cigarettes to last me and my family for the rest of our lives.
But are you though? Because what if they start asking you questions and they're like, hey, how much pasture versus timber is there? What about irrigation? We're wanting to run a crop operation on this portion of the land. And then what about the soil type? What kind of soil is it? And then you are answering these questions. Like, I think it's got a lot of pasture, probably, and good wood on there. For irrigation, I definitely saw a creek on the map. And the soil's real good, I think. I mean, it felt good on the bottom of my shoes whenever I was walking on it. It felt firm, felt strong. You don't know. Most people do not know how to help somebody do this. So the reason I say all of this is because they're called specialties for a reason. You want to specialize in one of them. And if somebody from the other part of the world that you don't work in, so let's say you work in commercial, and somebody wants to come list their house with you, and you're not affiliated with the MLS, and you don't know the state sales contract, and you don't know the residential loan supplements, don't take that deal. Just refer it. Find some people, make friends in the different categories, and you can hold on to some of that money and make sure they get taken care of well. Find friends that you can refer stuff to, and then say, you know, they'll give you a referral fee on it. You can make a good chunk of money from just giving somebody a name. Try to think more about who can best help these clients. And if it's not you, get them with somebody who can. One license does not prepare you to sell any of these. Work experience does, and training. In my next video, I'm going to talk about selecting a brokerage. Bye-bye.